He had always believed that if something extraordinary were ever going to happen, it would at least send a warning first. A flicker in the sky, a strange noise, maybe even a polite notification. Instead, it arrived disguised as a woman sprinting directly into his evening, knocking over his grocery bag and scattering oranges across the pavement like tiny, rolling alarms. "Sorry," he said automatically, crouching to collect them, because manners, he felt, should persist even during mild chaos. "Do not stop," she replied, her voice calm in a way that did not match the situation at all. He looked up, ready to apologize again, and that was when he noticed her ears. Not immediately obvious, not theatrical, but unmistakably long, tapering just enough to make his brain hesitate between explanations. Costume. Surgery, extremely committed theater? Right, he said slowly, holding an orange midair. I assume there's a story here. There is no time for. The sharp crack of something hitting metal nearby interrupted her, followed by the unmistakable hum of technology that did not belong in his very average neighborhood. He turned his head and saw them, figures moving with precision, carrying devices that glowed in unsettling, geometric patterns. They were not running chaotically. They were advancing, as if the outcome had already been calculated. He blinked. "Ah," he said, "that kind of story." She stepped closer to him, her movements strangely fluid, like her body disagreed slightly with gravity. "If they take me, many things will become worse, including, statistically, your immediate future." "Well, that's rude," he muttered, glancing between her and the approaching figures. "I just bought these oranges." Another pulse of energy struck the wall behind him, leaving a brief shimmer in the air, as if reality had been lightly scratched. He stared at it for a second too long. "Okay," he said, standing up abruptly. "New plan, we're not doing whatever this is." "You do not have a plan," she said. "Correct," he replied. "But I do have enthusiasm, which is almost the same thing if you don't think about it." He grabbed her wrist without waiting for further discussion and pulled her into the narrow alley beside them. It smelled faintly of dust and poor decisions. His heart pounded as he tried to remember every piece of advice he had ever ignored about dangerous situations. "Left or right?" he whispered. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something far beyond human hearing. "Up." He looked at the wall. "That's not a direction we can." She placed her hand against the surface, and for a brief, impossible moment, the texture of the wall seemed to soften, like it had forgotten its purpose. She glanced back at him. "Now it is." He stared. "I'm going to need you to explain that later." "If there is a later." "Encouraging," he said, stepping forward anyway. Behind them, the alley filled with light as the agents reached its entrance. One of them raised a device, and the air itself seemed to tighten in response. He didn't wait. He followed her through the wall. It felt like walking through cold water and static at the same time. For a split second, he was certain he had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. Then they were on the other side, emerging into another street that looked almost identical, except for the unsettling absence of sound. He exhaled sharply. "I'm starting to think this is above my skill level." She turned to him, studying his face with an intensity that made him suddenly aware of every questionable life choice he had ever made. Up close, her features were almost human, but not quite too symmetrical, too precise, as if designed rather than grown. "You intervened without understanding," she said. "Story of my life," he replied. "Usually, it just involves assembling furniture incorrectly." A faint smile touched her lips, brief and unexpected, then she stepped back. "They will not follow immediately," she said. "You have altered their calculations." "Great," he said. "I love being a variable, very comforting." She held his gaze for a moment longer, something unreadable passing through her expression. "You are more significant than you appear." People keep saying things like that today, and I'm not enjoying it. Another flicker, and the air around her seemed to bend. "We will meet again," she said. "Preferably under less illegal circumstances," he added quickly. Her eyes lingered on him, as if committing him to memory. Then she was gone, not disappearing dramatically, but simply no longer being there, as though reality had quietly corrected itself. He stood alone in the silent street, still holding the orange. After a long pause, he looked down at it. "I knew I shouldn't have left the house." The next morning did not behave like a normal morning. It started with his alarm clock, refusing to agree on what time meant, flashing symbols that looked suspiciously like they belonged on a spaceship control panel, rather than a device he bought on sale. He stared at it for a long moment and said, very calmly, "No." Then he unplugged it. The clock continued blinking. That was the first official sign that yesterday had not been a dream. He tried to return to routine anyway, because that is what humans do when reality starts malfunctioning. Coffee. Breakfast. Pretending everything is fine. The coffee machine, however, hissed softly and projected a faint holographic grid over the kitchen counter as if measuring his emotional stability. He poured the coffee anyway. It tasted slightly like metal and bad decisions. His phone began receiving messages from unknown numbers. They were not words, they were patterns. Some of them repeated. One of them looked exactly like a diagram of the alley wall from yesterday. He locked his phone, unlocked it, then locked it again as if that would negotiate with physics. "You are being watched," he muttered to himself, then added, "or I am going insane. Both are equally inconvenient." At work, nobody commented on the faint static that occasionally surrounded him like a lazy halo. His coworker tried to hand him paperwork, paused, blinked, and asked if he had recently been standing too close to a microwave full of secrets. He said yes. It seemed safer than explaining the truth. By lunchtime, objects around him had started reacting to his presence. Automatic doors opened slightly too late, then too early, as if confused about his timing. A vending machine refused to accept money and instead displayed a single symbol that looked suspiciously like the word observed. He bought nothing and left with dignity he did not feel. On his way home, he began forming what he called contingency plans, which mostly involved hiding under furniture and pretending that if he could not see interstellar agents, they could not see him either. He briefly considered wearing a cardboard box as camouflage. He wrote it down. He also wrote, "Do not trust pigeons," though he could not remember why. His apartment was worse. The lights dimmed when he entered, not in a broken way, but in a respectful, almost ceremonial way. His cat, who had previously shown interest only in food and betrayal, now sat perfectly still in the center of the room, staring at a corner with intense, philosophical judgment. "Okay," he said to the cat. "If you start levitating, I'm leaving." The cat did not move. The corner shimmered faintly. He sighed. "Great, haunted geometry." He sat down, and the air around him briefly displayed something like a map. Not projected exactly, more like reality remembering it was supposed to have layers. He poked it once. It rippled. He immediately regretted having fingers. Then the sky changed. It did not explode or crack or announce itself. It simply became aware. Through the window, he saw shapes forming above the city, vast structures folding into visibility like thoughts becoming physical. People outside began pointing upward. Cars stopped. Someone dropped a bag of breadsticks, which felt like the most human reaction possible. He stood slowly. "Of course," he said, "because why wouldn't it escalate?" The air pressure shifted, not violently but deliberately, like something large had decided. He had always assumed that being judged by an interstellar authority would involve some kind of dramatic courtroom, possibly with glowing pillars, floating laws of physics, and at least one ominous chant. Instead, it happened in the middle of his city, beneath ships that hung in the sky like thoughts too large to be ignored. While he stood there still holding the same grocery bag he had been holding since the day everything went wrong. The woman with long ears descended slowly, not touching the ground, as if even gravity was waiting for her permission. Up close, her expression was no longer just recognition. It was assessment. Like she had opened a book, found a scribbled note in the margin, and realized the note was about to change the entire text. "You interfered," she said. He nodded. "Yes, I've been told that before. Usually by inanimate objects, after I assemble them incorrectly." A pause. One of her aides, if that was the correct word for beings that looked like light folded into humanoid suggestion, shifted slightly. He couldn't tell if it was disapproval or just atmospheric adjustment. "You disrupted a sanctioned extraction," she continued. "I didn't know it was sanctioned," he said. "Honestly, I thought it was just a very aggressive job interview." That earned the smallest flicker of something on her face. Not quite a smile, more like the memory of one. Above them, the ships adjusted position. The sky dimmed and brightened in slow pulses, like something breathing and pretending it was. "You are insignificant," she said next. He nodded again. "I've had that reviewed by multiple performance evaluations. And yet," she added, "your action altered the outcome." He scratched his head. "Yeah, I'm still confused about that part too. I mostly just panicked with style." A soft sound came from her, almost like a suppressed laugh translated through discipline. It made the surrounding tension loosen slightly, like the universe had exhaled without realizing it. Then the tone changed. "You will be evaluated," she said, more formally now. "Humanity will be evaluated through you." He blinked. "Wait, through me? That feels unfairly specific. I would like to file a collective complaint on behalf of everyone else." "No appeal exists." "Of course there doesn't," he muttered. "That tracks." She raised her hand slightly, and the air between them filled with shifting structures, memories, probabilities, simulations of Earth layered like transparent sheets. He saw cities, forests, people laughing, arguing, building, breaking, fixing things badly and trying again. He saw himself too, small and constantly confused, still trying to assemble a life without missing screws. "You acted without power," she said. "Without knowledge, without advantage. I also acted without sleep," he added. "That should be listed somewhere." Another almost smile. "You did not act for gain," she continued. "I mean, I did get these oranges involved," he said quietly, glancing at the same grocery bag. A pause. Then she stepped closer. "That is why you are significant." He let out a breath. "I really think your measurement system is broken." "It is not." That's what a broken system would say. For the first time, she looked directly at him without evaluation, without calculation. Just presence. "We came to judge whether humanity should remain unobserved or be contained." He swallowed, "And I assume I am the fun sample. You are the variable that does not fit prediction." He laughed nervously. "That sounds like a polite way of saying error." "Error can become evolution," she said. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't hostile anymore. It was heavy in a different way, like meaning had finally decided to sit down. "So what happens now?" he asked. She looked up at the sky. The fleet waited, immense and patient. "Now," she said, "the decision is finalized." He braced himself instinctively, then realized something odd. The pressure he expected, the judgment, the collapse, the ending, did not come. Instead, the ships began to shift. Not preparing for attack, not preparing for withdrawal, reconfiguring. He frowned. "Is that good ship movement or bad ship movement?" "It is reconsideration," she said. "Oh," he said. "So, bureaucratic space hesitation." A sound like distant agreement rippled through the air above them. She turned back to him. "Your interference created uncertainty in a system designed to avoid it. I feel like I should be offended, but honestly I'm just relieved I didn't accidentally start an invasion." "You did not start an invasion," she said. "You interrupted one." He stared at her. "That's worse and better at the same time." Then slowly, the pressure in the air softened. The sky did not clear, but it loosened, like something enormous deciding not to close its hand. She stepped back, her long ears catching the shifting light. "Humanity will not be judged as an error," she said. He exhaled, long and shaky. "So, we're safe." She paused. "You are, under observation with revised parameters." He nodded. "That sounds like what my landlord says when I fix something incorrectly." For the first time, she looked almost amused. "I will remain as liaison." He blinked. "You're what?" She tilted her head slightly. "Assigned." He laughed. "Oh no. I've been assigned back." The ships above began to fade, not disappearing, but withdrawing like a thought being stored rather than erased. The sky returned piece by piece to normal, though normal now felt like a word that had survived too many revisions. As the pressure lifted, people around them slowly resumed movement. Confused, uncertain, but alive, he looked at her. So, you came back, judged me, judged humanity, didn't destroy us, and now you're stuck here. I am not stuck, she said. Right, he said. Highly official visiting position with mandatory Earth exposure. A pause, then she said yes. He smiled faintly. Welcome to Earth. We apologize in advance for everything. She studied him for a long moment. You have changed the outcome of civilizations without intention. He shrugged. I can barely change a light bulb without instructions. That is what makes it effective, she said. He looked at the city, at the sky now only faintly remembering what had been there, then back at her. I guess I'm different now, he said. Yes, she replied. You are now a recognized anomaly. He groaned. That sounds like a medical condition. It is not. Comforting. She stepped beside him, no longer above, no longer distant, just there, present in a way that felt strangely final. So what now? He asked again, softer this time. She considered. Now you continue existing, inefficiently. He laughed. That might be the nicest insult I've ever received. And for the first time since everything began, he walked forward without looking over his shoulder for ships, agents, or impossible walls. Because somehow, without meaning to, he had already passed the test. The days after the fleet withdrew did not feel like peace at first. They felt like the world was holding its breath, unsure if it had been forgiven or simply postponed. The sky looked normal again, which somehow made it more suspicious. People went back to their routines with the careful optimism of someone touching a surface they know might still be hot. He tried too. He woke up, made coffee, and waited for it to accuse him of interstellar crimes. It did not. The toaster also behaved. Even the cat stopped staring into corners with the intensity of a philosophical tribunal. That's it. He asked the universe one morning. No more cosmic evaluations, no paperwork, no follow-up survey. Nothing answered, which he decided to interpret as approval. But she remained, not hovering in the sky this time, not stepping through walls or bending reality like it was mildly inconvenient. She simply existed in his world now, walking through streets, observing humanity with the quiet patience of someone studying a species that insists on reinventing confusion daily. He learned small things first. That her long ears reacted subtly to emotional frequency shifts in the environment, that she did not understand why humans placed so much importance on sandwiches, that she once tried to blend in by standing perfectly still in a supermarket aisle for 40 minutes, which resulted in 3 people asking her if she was a display model. He also learned she was terrible at humor. I do not understand the joke, she said one evening after he tried explaining sarcasm. That's because it's not meant to be understood, he replied. It's meant to confuse people into friendship. This is inefficient. Yes, he nodded. That's humanity's brand. She considered this deeply, as if filing it into a universal archive labeled problematic but persistent. In return, she taught him fragments of her world. Not technology exactly, but perception. How space could be read like language. How probability sometimes behaved like weather. How entire conflicts were decided not by force, but by whether a civilization could tolerate uncertainty without collapsing. He listened, mostly impressed, occasionally distracted by the fact that she could make gravity feel like a suggestion just by standing still. One afternoon, standing on a rooftop, he finally asked, "So am I still being judged?" She looked at the horizon. No. He blinked. No. The evaluation ended, she said. Your influence changed the parameters. The system adapted. He exhaled, so I passed. She paused, considering the phrasing. You were not designed to be passed. That's not reassuring. It is accurate. He laughed softly. Great, I love being an unsolved equation. The wind moved between them. Above, the sky was quiet, not empty, just no longer watching in the same way. And you, he asked, what happens to you now? Do you go back, get promoted, alien vacation time? Her ears tilted slightly. A subtle sign he had learned meant uncertainty. I was reassigned, she said. To me, he guessed. Yes. He sighed. That sounds like I've adopted an entire diplomatic incident. A faint pause. Then unexpectedly she said, you are not difficult to observe. That might be the most polite insult I've ever received. I am not insulting you. That's worse. That means it's just true. She looked at him then, really looked, not as data or anomaly or variable, but as something that had stopped fitting neatly into categories a long time ago. You are not what we expected humanity to be, she said. He shrugged. Honestly, neither are we. A silence settled between them, not heavy this time, just shared. He leaned against the railing. So what now? She mirrored the gesture imperfectly, as if learning it for the first time. Now I remain, I observe, I adjust understanding. That sounds suspiciously like living here. I do not require living. Sure, he said. That's what all the people who end up living here say at first. A pause, then very quietly she added, I do not dislike it. He smiled. Careful, that's basically citizenship. Weeks passed like that, not dramatic, not explosive, just continuing. He stopped waiting for the sky to change. She stopped treating humanity like an unfolding error. Somewhere between her logic and his chaos, a balance formed that neither of them fully understood, but neither tried to break. Sometimes, late at night, she would ask him questions that had no efficient answers. Why people lied about liking songs they hated, why they kept pets that judged them, why they apologized to objects. And he would answer with jokes that made no sense to her, which she would later try to decode like ancient mathematics. One night, she stood by the window and said, Your species persists through contradiction. He nodded. We're very committed to it. That is, statistically unstable. Yeah, he said, but it works, weirdly. She turned to him. The fleet no longer considers Earth an anomaly requiring intervention. He raised an eyebrow. That's good, right? It is unresolved, she said. He laughed. Of course it is. Then she added softer, but I have revised my own conclusion. He waited. You are not insignificant, she said. He blinked. Careful, that sounds like emotional progress. I am uncertain if that is allowed, she replied. It is, unfortunately. She studied him again.